And now it's time for the news review section where we delve deeper into one of the day's top stories, so stay tuned. Russian and Ukrainian forces are engaged in heavy fighting for a fourth day near the shared border in southwestern Russia's Kursk region after a surprise Ukrainian offensive. Moscow says it is sending in more weapons and has declared a federal state of emergency in Kursk. Separately, there are reports of Russian troops advancing in Ukraine's Donetsk region, and allegedly a Russian strike has killed at least 12 people in East Ukraine. Both sides have stepped up aerial attacks behind the front lines. Russian troops have been slowly advancing for months in East Ukraine, but Kiev's surprise offensive into the Kursk region appears to have caught Moscow off guard. Meanwhile, the Pentagon says Ukraine's incursion into Russia is in line with the U.S. policy regarding Kiev's use of American weapons. The U.S. and its Western allies have been providing huge military and financial support to Kiev since the start of the Ukraine war in early 2022. Now, to talk more on this, we are joined by Mr. Andrei Dobryansky, Communications Director at the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America from New York, and also Mr. John Bosnitch, journalist, activist and political analyst from Fredericton, Canada. Gentlemen, welcome to the news review section. Mr. Dobryansky, beginning with you, sir. Your initial thoughts on the Ukrainian incursion into Russia's Kursk region, which is the largest since the war began 2 years ago, while using American-made weapons on Russian soil?
More than American-made weapons. Obviously, governments like Germany have also commented that they are okay with their weapons being used in this incursion, as well as a new batch of weapons being announced today, not just from the United States, but from countries like Lithuania. It is clear that the allies of Ukraine, the broader coalition, is supportive of Ukraine, making sure that it can make advances on the battlefield, while at the current moment, we have not heard any of Russia's allies make similar statements, either condemning Ukraine or supporting Russia.
That's right. Mr. Bosnitch, your thoughts as well, and also has the deployment of American F-16 fighter jets deployed to Ukraine last week made any changes, maybe shifting the balance of power towards Kiev?
Well, I think that these latest developments are obviously important developments on the battlefield, but they do not change the predictable end outcome of this conflict. Russia cannot allow the direct incursion by military means, by coup d'etat, by any other method of the NATO alliance to the position that it tried to take up in Kiev. That is an existential threat to the country, to the entire Russian Federation, and therefore it cannot be accepted. The balance of power is infinitely weighted in Russia's side, on Russia's side, and whatever interventions there are now from Western powers who are providing support for the Ukrainians will be a passing phenomenon. And it could be related to the upcoming US election, because the Democratic Party, which wants to stay in power, is the party of war in Ukraine, and they need to show some results on the battlefield before the election in November. So this is all tied together. Russia will prevail. The Ukrainians will be destroyed. Unfortunately, what we're going to see is many, many more Slavs killed, both Ukrainians and Russians, at the whim of the banksters in New York and the military-industrial complex of the Western Alliance.
That's right, Mr. Bosnitch. Mr. Dobryansky, European countries like Austria, Hungary, Slovakia still buy gas from Russia, and all of this is flowing through the Kursk region. So what implications would this latest incursion by Ukraine have on the flow of gas to Europe? And also, why is Europe still importing gas from Russia, or vice versa? Why is Moscow still supplying gas to Europe?
Big question having to do with the economy of most of the world and the fact that many people, many governments are still not comfortable breaking ties. We know that the United States, for instance, has had numerous agreements with Russia, no least of which Roscosmos and NASA signed a multi-year agreement just last summer. So it's not the fact that Russia has been completely cut off from the rest of the world. It is that incremental sanctions have been put on it. Now, as far as the Russian gas supply, I think it's very similar to the type of incursion we are witnessing. And of course, we're not seeing a lot because Russia has shut down incrementally social media. So we don't have Russians uploading videos to YouTube or using apps like Signal to get the message out. But what we have seen is that this is not the type of incursion that Russia did onto Ukrainian soil. What we are not seeing is war crimes being committed, random people being shot along the street, toilets and home goods being stolen from people's property. Ukraine is simply occupying territory as it goes along. It is not encountering a lot of native resistance because these people are basically occupied by their government. And when Ukraine, as witnessed in pictures posted online today, occupies the Gazprom offices in Sudzha in the Kursk region, we are not seeing the blowing up of gas pipelines. What we're seeing is an incursion and the hold and control of land.
That's right. Mr. Bosnitch, to wrap this up, how long will this war, in your opinion, will continue for? And what is Ukraine and their allies looking for? Who would come out victorious?
Well, first of all, I just want to address the question of war crimes here. We've had conflicting claims about war crimes, mainly generated in Washington and regurgitated by their paid lobbyists. But the fact of the matter is that any time there's been an effort to investigate war crimes, the Ukrainians have refused to cooperate. So we have a war which is being fought mainly in the media. We have a war which has great parallels with World War II. And what we're seeing now is the neo-Nazi regime in Ukraine, in Kiev, attempting to make a battle of the Bulge like Hitler did in the beginning of 1945 and the end of 1944. It will fail. It will be a disaster. There will be many, many more people needlessly killed. But the end is that the Battle of Kursk is going to end this time in Russia's favor, just as it ended in Russia's favor last time when Adolf Hitler was directly leading the Ukrainian forces and not leading them through Washington and their neo-Nazi allies like today.
On that note, I would like to thank Mr. John Bosnitch, journalist, activist and political analyst from Fredericton, Canada, and also Mr. Andrei Dobryanski, Communications Director at Ukrainian Congress Committee of America from New York. Gentlemen, thank you for being on the program. And with that, we come to the end of this news review section. Thank you, dear viewers, for being with us.